Today, we're going to talk about my content conversion system. We're going to talk about my buddy Tom's amazing results. You know, a lot of you folks are being lied to. And the big lie is that the only way to grow a recruitment business is just to be on the phone all day long, or to be sending countless, personalized, individualized messages all day long. That's the only way you're going to grow a recruitment business. The harsh reality of that is it's just not true. There's other ways to do it. And there's more modern ways to do it that allow you to kind of get your life back. And the more modern ways focus on attraction, bringing people towards you. And that's something that does not happen overnight. This takes time to build. Okay. And so when we're talking about content, let's just talk about some of the common mistakes that I see people make. Okay. The first mistake is that people create content, but they're not really creating it for anything specific. They're just out there, they're creating, they're posting, they're at least taking the step. Kudos to you for hopping out there. But they're not really speaking to anybody. They don't have like an audience that they're going after. And typically what happens when you do that is your messaging isn't going to connect with anybody. Nobody's going to really, it's not going to resonate with people as much because it's not directed towards anything specific. So that's usually the first common mistake that I see people make, is that they're just not really focused in on what their core target market is. The next thing is they go on the content path and they start creating content, and all the content is about them. It's about themselves. And really, in today's world, we're all really about what's in it for me. And so I'm not saying that there's not a place to create content to talk about you and your business and to promote. Of course, that needs to be a part of the problem, but the lead should really be creating value and creating, something for a specific market. That's what, again, is going to attract them to you. Okay. The other common mistake I see is just a lack of consistency. And the lack of consistency, there's a lot of different reasons for this. One, the biggest one that people hide behind is I don't have time to do it. And that's just not true. It means that you haven't prioritized it yet. There's always plenty of time in the day to go create and post content, especially with all the automated tools to help you get that stuff done now. You really have enough time in your day to be able to be consistent with your content. And sometimes, it comes into the story of like, well, I don't want to be too aggressive. I don't want to be annoying and things like that. But, what I always find funny is like when you look at the biggest, most popular brands in the world, when you look at Target and IBM and Amazon and Apple and all these things, these people are in front of us every single day with their messaging, with their branding, with their advertisements every day. And yet we buy all of their products. So, if you really are in that thinking of, too much is going to be annoying, I would really encourage you to think differently about that. You need, in order to really break through the noise and penetrate, you've got to be consistent. Okay. The other thing is with consistency is a lot of times people go down the path and they start off being consistent, but then they don't see results, within the first week or two. And they go, this whole content thing really just doesn't work for me. And, that just, it's not really where it's at. You have to stay consistent with content. You have to give a market. You have to give your audience a chance to, first off, know that you even exist. Then they have to kind of start trusting you and seeing that you're consistent before they actually start listening to you. So there's a process that your audience and whether you're writing or watching or whatever, that they're going to go through, that's going to, basically see if they're actually going to grab on and gravitate towards you. You can't do that through one or two posts. Now, one or two posts, yeah, you might be able to drum up a quick win or two, but if you're talking about consistency, it's just not going to happen that way. So, the other thing is a lot of people create content and they're doing it for like the feel good, the dopamine, the likes, the comments. And, a lot of times good content isn't going to really drive likes and comments. Good content a lot of time keeps your best person that's watching. They might not be liking and commenting it, because really a lot of good content is going to include some pain. Okay. So, I was talking to a good friend of mine, Tom. Tom went through my program. He's one of the very first people to go through the Relevant Recruiter program about 4 years ago. And, to be honest, it's been just such a joy to watch Tom evolve over this time and over this process. And, when I first started working with Tom, he was very much a perfectionist. And it took Tom a long time to really get himself out there and be consistent with his content. Because, he thought that everything had to be perfect. And we eventually found a balance there with Tom, because Tom is a very professional guy, very well spoken. and how he was portrayed to his market was very important. But there was a balance because his perfection kept on taking him from taking action. But what's happened over the last several years of Tom doing this is in the last 2 years, Tom's picked up several individual accounts, but he's picked up 2 monster accounts where in these individual accounts, he's picked up, I think in one case, over 75 orders with one company, and in another case, 100 orders. And these are exclusive. These aren't going out to anybody else. Now, fortunately, Tom's got a great system in place. He's got a great team to be able to support that. But you can imagine what the revenue tag is tied to just those alone. Okay. And he's getting those as a direct result of putting himself out in the marketplace and creating content. Okay. But one of the things I want to talk about here is how it's taken the longevity of him being consistent. And yeah, he was picking up wins along the way, but the importance of him sticking and staying and committing to his niche and buying into the process has literally generated him millions of dollars. And you can do the same too, but the key is getting started on that journey and that path. There is no shortcut. Okay. There's no shortcut to going out there, becoming skilled at it, becoming known in your marketplace, and turning that, that awareness of you and your brand into inbound leads, into inbound clients, job orders, and ultimately revenue. Okay. It's a process that you just have to buy into. So we're going to talk about, the actual content conversion system that I teach my clients and walk you through exactly what we're talking about right now. So the very first element of the content conversion system comes into the niche, the target market. Okay. Tom is very focused on a very specific niche in the pharma industry. Okay. And that's one of the biggest reasons he's had a lot of traction. Now, of course, you can stay a generalist with your content, and there's a lot of different thoughts and lots of different opinions on this. What I've seen through myself, what I've seen through my clients, is it's a lot easier to get traction faster when I'm speaking to a very specific audience. The reason being is, one, I can get my messaging dialed in. I can really clearly talk to that audience. I can focus on their pains, the problems, and the outcomes that they're after, so that they really start to receive my message. And then the other things that kind of come up from the niche is it actually makes it easier for you to create content. It becomes an easier game for you. It doesn't become so burdensome because you know the pulse of the market. You're always just creating specific things for that market. The other thing it allows you to do is it allows you to cut through the noise, right? When you're a generalist, you're speaking to a lot of people. When you're niched in, you're speaking to that clear audience, and then you can cut through that path a little bit easier because you're really taking hold of a specific market and industry. And, there's some people out there that will tell you that there's more money being a journalist, and I'll argue that there's actually way more money in being, focused in on a niche. So many people can spread themselves thin, but if you haven't really taken, even a full % or 5% of your actual market's share, why would you go anywhere else? Why, there's so much money to be made just in one niche. And then it creates that rinse and repeat from the business. But from a content standpoint, it's just important so I can communicate to my market. I can communicate the pains and the problems for that market specifically. Okay. The next thing that, Tom was able to do well, the next thing we really work in is really focus on becoming a valuable resource to your market. And so in order to do that, you're going to want to create free resources for your market, create lead magnets, ebooks, guides, trainings, whatever it may be. But when you really commit to being a resource for your market, now you have people that are watching you because they're actually getting value from you beyond just what you do from the actual function of your business. And people can get value from both. One of the big myths out there is, oh, my clients, all they really find value in is that body that I can put in the seat. And yeah, nobody's going to argue that ultimately at the end of the day, that's what they want. But along the way, there's other little problems that you can be solving. There's other little things, pain points they're doing in their day as a hiring decision maker, for example, that you could be solving for them, that is going to put them in your mind as the authority in the market. Okay. But when I really commit to becoming a valuable resource to my market, then that allows me to, connect with my market in a different way. I'm not always selling to my market. I'm attracting people, and I'm talking to them, and people again want to know what's in it for them. Right. So the next thing is, once you start to put out stuff and you start to add value to the market, you also need to be able to plant a flag. Okay. And this is where What I mean by plant a flag is you have to have an opinion. You can't be wishy-washy, right? For example, I started off this webinar telling you that you've been lied to. My opinion is that if you think that the only way you can grow a recruiting business is through the phone, I think you're foolish. It's an opinion. It's my flag on the ground, right? Do you have to be good on the phone? 100%. But is it the only way you're going to win on the phone? 100% not. And so have an opinion with whatever content that you're putting out there. So go in the comments real quick. Let me know if this stuff's making sense as I'm talking through it. Okay. But when you really plant a flag and you have an opinion, that's what attracts people to you, right? Then it also pushes a part of the market away. There's an abundance of people. Don't be afraid to have an opinion to pull people forward to you, pull people towards you. That's really what draws a lot of the attention is when you have that opinion. Okay. The next thing is we talked about earlier about not over promoting. Okay. But there's a difference between promoting and sharing stories. And people want to actually know the personal side of you. And Tom's done a good job of this. Tom talks about his son and some of the successes he's had, talks about his daughter, talks about his family. And what this allows your market to do is it allows them to see you and the human side of you. And if you do stories properly, you can actually relate personal life stories with what's going on in business and draw some connections there. But, a lot of times what's going to really perform in the feed is driving emotion, right? If you can create a post that's going to make somebody laugh or cry, you're going to get a lot of traction from a post like that. And it's not all about, engagement, all the time. Sometimes it's about engagement. Sometimes it's about driving more value, but having a good mixture is really, really important so that you can get your clients to see a bigger picture. Okay. Get away from kind of the corporate traditional, hey, here's 3 reasons why you need to work with XYZ company. People just aren't receptive to that stuff anymore. But what people are receptive to is your story and why you got into this industry and what breaks your heart about this industry and what you're doing about it. And just keep it in mind as you're creating stories, that stuff is going to be incredibly, incredibly valuable for you as you move forward. And that's going to really draw people in to you. So a couple examples. The other day I just did a post about my 5-year journey. It's been 5 years since I've started my coaching business. That's a story. And when I do that, I get lots of great feedback. Recently, my grandfather passed. I wrote about that. A lot of that I was just doing for my own therapy, but then I was sharing what I was writing in my journal, and that draws people closer to me. They see this human side of me. They see some of the values and things that I believe in. And people don't want to just do business with you 100% because of the results you drive. They want to do business with you because they like you, because they trust you, because they see that you're winning. Okay. And so that's the other thing that Tom does really well, is Tom talks about his wins. Tom talks about his successes. Because, at the end of the day, if we're just being honest, people want to work with winners. Okay. So you want to be in your content. Part of the content conversion system is creating content that's going to show that you're winning and you're successful, not in an arrogant way, not in a boastful way, but in a way that is out of service and out of the betterment of your market, out of the betterment of the people of your clients and candidates. And people can see that and they really latch on to that. Okay. You also want to make sure that you have a balance of content. And this question actually came up in my mastermind group this morning. I thought it was a great question. It's like, well, should I create one candidate driven post for every one one client driven post? And, the rule of thumb here is that, at least in my opinion, is you don't want to overthink that. You want to find the balance based off of what's coming up creatively, because really what you'll find is that as you're speaking to candidates in a lot of markets, you're actually speaking to the client and the candidate when you're talking to a candidate message. But even if you're dealing with a traditional, hiring decision maker that's not necessarily, working that same role, when you're creating content and you're speaking to your market and your market starts to see like, oh, this is how he treats his candidates. This is what he believes a good candidate experience should look like. And they believe the same thing, that attracts them to you just as much. Right. So don't think that, oh, this person, this is a candidate driven post. Well, none of my clients are reading that. No, they are. They're still reading that. They're still watching that. One of the examples I give is I've had several clients that go out and they'll create, one of the things we do in the programs, we show how to create more interesting, videos to promote our jobs. Right. And I had a client that went through my program and the content conversion system, did videos to try to attract candidates for a job. And what she ended up attracting was actually more job orders, because the hiring decision maker saw it and said, hey, this is one of the more creative ways I've ever seen anybody go out and approach the market. We've got 3 open roles. Would you be willing to work on this? So, being creative, thinking outside of the box, talking to both clients and candidates, not worrying about it, is really, really important. Okay. And that's a big part of the content conversion system, is speaking to both sides of the coin there. Okay. The next thing is, Tom went above and beyond here. And what I mean by that is that once we kind of set up the basics, once we set up his lead magnet, his funnel, and this is actually a little bit beyond basics, and he got consistent with his content, I reached out to him and told him there's another opportunity. And this other opportunity is what really put it over the edge. And, I just want to share this with you guys, if you're those of you that are on the fence or thinking about doing this, but we had Tom go on in a podcast, and that podcast has been a complete game changer. What he does is he interviews, clients and candidates in his market, and he's in a very, very, very specific niche, and literally everybody in his market watches his podcast. I mean, he's got thousands and thousands of downloads of his podcast because he's relevant to one specific audience. He's delivering value, and he's sharing other people's successes in one specific audience, and he's able to take and leverage that podcast as a business development tool to try to get clients onto a show. So these are the ways that you can really get creative and think outside of the box and do things that are really impacting your industry and ultimately going to impact your bottom line. But the amount of awareness that Tom has around his brand is absolutely just crazy. It's insane. Okay. And the last thing that Tom has done well is he's consistent. You will see this every single day he's out there. And the way he's out there is he's leveraging his podcast. He's promoting it. He's using his podcast. He's taking clips from his podcast. So he's repurposing his content. Yesterday, I talked to him, and on our phone call, he's like, oh, actually, that video that you saw me post, I posted it a couple months before. I'm repurposing it, which is one of the things we work on in the content conversion system, is how to repurpose your content. So many times we think that, our egos are so big sometimes that we think that everybody's just watching everything we post and they're reading it with detail. Guys, I email every day. I post on multiple channels every single day. And I can guarantee you, most of you that are watching this right now don't see that. And neither do your clients when you're posting your stuff. So you have to be consistent, and you want to be able to leverage yourself. So when you get in that busy day, you repurpose that content, and that helps you stay consistent. You want to be out there every single day, wherever your audience is, via email, social media, whatever it looks like. You want to be in regular contact with them. Okay. And that consistency is what gets somebody to know, like, and trust you. Nobody has built a business and built a strong online brand through one post. No post has ever made or broke or a business. So buy into the consistency, buy into the journey. And like I said, what Tom is seeing 4 years later is insane on top of what he was seeing just from the beginning, because he believed in the process, he stuck to the process, and he ultimately implemented the entire relevant recruiter method. But the content conversion system, the thing that people have the most doubt about, is actually what's driven the most results to him. So if you have any questions, go ahead and drop them in the comments right now. But what I want to do is talk to you guys a little bit about the Relevant Recruiter program itself. It's a 6-month mentorship program. And when we go through this program, we're transforming the way people are running the recruiting business. We're making it more efficient and easier to have phone calls with clients and candidates. We're getting them booking right on their calendar. We're driving massive brand awareness. We're working on positioning so we can get people to stand out in the marketplace. And when you stand out and you're different than the next recruiter, you get more exclusive opportunities, you get more retained opportunities, you get less candidate dropouts. You get so much more consistency, and you're ultimately gonna, not waste as much time on jobs that you'll never fill. And it's incredibly important that you really know how to stand out in the marketplace. We show you how to leverage LinkedIn to the fullest, leverage their platform by automating certain parts of the platform, by creating incredible personalized direct messaging strategies that are different from the next person out there. Getting you into that content conversion system like we just went over. That's a huge part of the program so that you can really attract people in. The great thing about content is it works for you 24/7, 365. It doesn't rest. It's always out there. It's working for you, even when you're on the phone, even when you're, out on a date with your husband or wife, at the park, playing with your kids, whatever you're doing, your content's working for you. And that's leverage. And that's one of the biggest things. And the last thing we really focus on in the program is we focus on showing you how to scale across multiple channels. LinkedIn is great, but we want to be looking at how do we really maximize, our email? How do we maximize Facebook? How do we maximize Twitter? How do we maximize Instagram? How do we maximize YouTube? How do we maximize wherever your audience is hanging out? How can you engage with them? And anybody that's telling you that it's a one platform game is just thinking too small. There's other ways that you can create and target very specific audiences across multiple platforms, and keep yourself as the most top of mind choice, right? Nobody ever decided to hire a recruiting company because all of a sudden they became good at marketing. They decided to hire a recruiting company because that recruiting company became good at marketing and stayed top of mind and continue to add value and nurture until the need was arising. And then they become the obvious choice. And, the client's not really looking anywhere else. So don't wait. Right now is the time to put in the system. When you're busy is the time to put in the system. The biggest thing that I helped people with last year in the middle of COVID is people were scrambling. Why? Because they were resting on their laurels. They were resting on a couple legacy clients that have been keeping them going for years and years and years. And then COVID hit, those clients went away, then they started to scramble. And now what I see is people doing the same thing. Oh, I'm too busy to put my system in place. I'm too busy to create content. And what's going to happen is this market is going to cool down like it always does. And you're going to go back to square zero. So if that's you, if you know deep down that you don't have a system in place and you're not ready to scale, then let's get on the phone and talk. We'll just talk exactly about how the relevant recruiter method, we'll talk even specifically about the content conversion system, how that can support your business and how that can help you get to the next level. You need a system in place to get to the next level. The most important thing, the most valuable thing, the most valuable skill you can have as a recruiting agency owner or entrepreneur is the ability to pack your own calendar and keep a loaded pipeline. If you have that, you have all of the options in the world to do whatever you want with your business. Then you can bring on team members more comfortably. You don't have to worry about if you have enough work for them. You can turn clients away. You can ultimately work with clients that really just value you and your time. There's a different way to run a recruiting business. And if that's you want to explore that, drop a me in the comments below. I'll reach out to you or send me a direct message. If you're not comfortable dropping a comment, or I will drop my link to my calendar right in the comments below. But don't wait any longer. Let's get on a call and let's see how we can help you implement the content conversion system and start generating a massive brand and building a massive brand that is going to ultimately attract 10s, 20s, 30s, 40s, even hundreds of potential new job orders for your business on clockwork, on autopilot. And you don't have to be owned by the phone of the business. Just stay with it. Let's build you a new business. I will talk to you soon. This is Donnie Gupton. Again, drop a me in the comments below. Looking forward to speaking with you all and have a great rest of your week. Talk soon.